What's going on, everybody? I am here in Marrakech, Morocco right now, and today I want to talk to you about 7 things that you need to know before traveling here.
So to start off with point number one, I think that one of the most important things to know about traveling in Morocco is that almost everything is negotiable. I kind of operate here under the idea that if there's no price tag on something, then it can be negotiated. So if you're getting in a taxi, you're shopping at the local market, if you're looking for a local guide to do a tour, you kind of talk to them and bargain for the price because there's no set rate on all of those things. So this can get pretty tiring, but I kind of use the idea that I go into something knowing how much I'd be willing to spend on it, kind of stick to that principle and try not to go over that price. And that's a good way to do it. But don't be afraid to say no or to walk away and find someone else that'd be willing to help you out for a similar price that you want to pay, because you can always find a good deal somewhere. So just know that. But if you are going to some restaurants and things like where you're staying and all that, you're going to see price tags, and that's fine. Just pay what they say. But if there's no price tag, negotiate it. So with that being said, moving on to point number two, which was rather unfortunate, but you do have to look out for a certain number of scams here in Marrakech. Now, it's not everyone, it's not always the case, but there are a lot of people who come up to you and they look like they're trying to help you, but they're actually hoping to, maybe they are helping you, but they are hoping for some money out of it. So this happened to me in the Medina where I was walking, and I was kind of a little bit lost. It's very chaotic in there sometimes. So I was looking to go towards the main square. There's just a guy standing there, and I asked him, "Hey, which way to the main square?" And he pointed me in the right direction. He walked with me for a short amount of time, and then he showed me where to go. And then he asked me for money afterwards. And so it was kind of just like he wanted a tip for helping me go in that direction, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but it's something that happens a lot, that strangers will come up to you and point you in a direction and say, "Give me money for helping you get where you need to go," or they'll just do things that are very small and minimal, but they expect money out of it. And then another thing I've seen a lot of times is that you shouldn't take pictures of people's stalls or things. This didn't happen to me particularly, but I was talking to someone who took a picture of a shop in the Medina, and the owner came out at them and was pretty aggressive towards them and was saying that, "Hey, you took a picture of my shop. You have to either pay me or buy something." So make sure that you know not to take pictures without permission, or unless you buy something, then you can take a picture of the shop. And finally, there's also certain things happening at the main square in Marrakech that are a little bit weird or unfortunate. Like there's people walking around with monkeys, and they say like, you can take a picture. Or they'll just like almost hand you the monkey and then take a picture of you and be like, "Hey, you have to pay me for this." And it's kind of overwhelming and chaotic. So just know that there's a lot of things happening in the main areas where there's a lot of chaos. So beware of your surroundings and make sure that you keep your money in a secure place, and know that people are trying to get money out of you, whether for better or worse. So keep that in mind. And now moving on to point number three, which honestly should be pretty apparent after the first two things I talked about, but that is the fact that you really need to pack your patience on a trip here. It started for me right when I got to the airport in Marrakech. That passport line wasn't even that long, but it ended up taking me like an hour and 45 minutes to get through the passport control. And the people at the desk were just kind of slow, and there was a lot of questions. So it took patience for me as soon as I arrived here. And then in the city, it's even more so. I find that if you're walking around the Medina, there's always going to be people coming up to you, asking you questions, asking you to look at their shop. And so it's just a lot. It can be overwhelming if you're quick to anger, you're a very impatient person. And I also think that it's just like almost a slower way of life for certain things here. Like if you're taking the public transportation, you might be waiting a long time before the next one comes. Or if you're at a restaurant, maybe there's slow service and the food takes a long time to come out, I've noticed. So you just kind of got to be okay with sitting and waiting and understanding that things might take a longer time, or there's going to be people asking you questions. You just have to be patient with saying no and talking to them and being okay with that while you're in Morocco. All right, so now moving on to point number four, which honestly could have been point number one, because it's very important to know how you're going to get money out in Morocco. So you need to understand that the Moroccan dirham, the local currency, is actually a closed currency. And what this means is that it's pretty difficult to get outside of the country, and you basically have to get it on arrival, and you're also not supposed to take large amounts of it outside when you leave. So basically, there's three options to have when you arrive in Marrakech for getting money out. And it's also important to know that if you're thinking you're just going to pay for everything with card, that's pretty difficult because it's a very cash-based society, and not most, but a lot of places do not take cards. So the first option that you can have is to exchange right at the airport with your home currency. So you arrive, you go through customs, and there's a bunch of exchange places in the Marrakech airport, and you can exchange it and get the currency and then take a cab into the city, all of that stuff. The second option is to have a driver who will take you into the city or something without having to pay him in dirham. So you can either book it online in advance, where you pay by card, or maybe he accepts a different type of currency. And this is what I did. I had a driver who accepted euros. He took me in the Medina. And then once you get there, the other two options are open to you. The first is that you can exchange at a local exchange house, which probably has a little bit of a better rate than the airport would. And then the second option is to use a local ATM. And that is the choice that I went with. I have a bank card, so I just went to, well, most people have a bank card, I guess, but I used my bank card to go to the ATM in the Medina in Marrakech, took out all the money I needed. And the last thing to know is that don't take out too much money because you're really not supposed to take it out of the country when you're leaving. So only take out what you're expecting to use while you're in Morocco. And speaking of money, now moving on to point number 5, which is the fact that Marrakech can honestly be as cheap or as expensive of a destination as you want it to be based on your own choices. If you're on a shoestring budget and backpacking here, it can be a very, very affordable place to stay. You can probably find hostels or riads if you're looking for them, but that are $10 to $15 a night. You can eat local dishes for like $3 to $4 a dish. Take public transportation that might cost like 40 cents for a ride somewhere. And you can definitely walk everywhere too. So if you're negotiating prices and really backpacking on a budget, it's possible. But also if you're looking for more of a luxury vacation, they have that here as well. There are many luxury resorts, high-end hotels and things just outside the Medina. You can find awesome jewelry and carpets and like things that you can spend your money on, and nice fancy restaurants, all that type of stuff. So basically you can choose your budget in Marrakech. All right, now with all that being said, I want to move on to point number 6, and hopefully these are all flowing together pretty well because I want to talk next about where to stay in Marrakech. And I'm not going to mention every single neighborhood and place to stay. I just want to mention in the Medina or outside the Medina. If you don't even know what the Medina is, it's essentially the old town center of the city. It's basically what you would call like in the walls of the city. It's where all the hustle and bustle is happening with the markets, a lot of the sites that you want to see, things like that. And you can choose to stay at so many accommodations within that Medina. There's so many riads, amazing places to stay, luxurious or cheap, all that type of stuff. But I chose to stay outside the Medina for one reason alone. And it's the fact that I find being there all day, every day can be pretty overwhelming or a bit tiring after haggling with so many people and talking to so many people all the time. And I think that I like staying outside because it gives me more of a chance to rest and recover and go somewhere that's quieter than being in the hustle and bustle of the city. So if you're someone who wants to be in the thick of the action all the time, then I would definitely recommend staying in the Medina. If you're someone that likes it but wants to have more rest and relaxation and more of like a chill time, I'd say you stay outside and then go into the Medina whenever you choose to. And finally, last but not least, the 7th thing I think you should know before traveling to Marrakech, Morocco is the fact that it's actually not always hot here. And this might seem like a dumb thing to say. Of course, there's going to be changing weather patterns. You shouldn't just assume that it's going to be hot because it's in North Africa and things like that. But I felt pretty dumb here because I was going on a tour to the Atlas Mountains from Marrakech, and we were going to be doing a lot of walking and hiking and stuff. So I assumed that I'd be hot and sweating. So I left for the morning just in shorts and a t-shirt. And let me tell you, I was absolutely freezing during most of this tour. It was not very warm that day, and we were walking through some shaded parts, and the wind was hitting me, and I was just really, really cold. So make sure that you know that you should always check the weather. Don't just assume, oh, Morocco is hot. Make sure you know when you're coming, the time of the year, and what you're going to be doing, and be prepared to maybe have a colder day. So don't just bring shorts and t-shirts on your trip. Pack for all types of weather too. Alright everyone, so that's going to do it for this video. I really hope you found it enjoyable and insightful. I highly recommend visiting Marrakech if you get the chance. It's an amazing city. I think it's really beautiful and enchanting, and I just can't recommend it enough. So if you get the chance, take it. I'll see you guys on the next video.